The Inter-Governmental Panel on Climate Change believes that 1 million animal and plant species may go extinct if the planet continues to warm. A major portion of the heat is being absorbed by the world's oceans, threatening marine species and their habitats.
We have already now 40% of amphibians which are threatened by extinction.
You can drive on a boat or swim for kilometers without seeing a living coral.
Marine biodiversity havens in the Philippines are bracing for impact, with the green sea turtle threatened with extinction within this decade.
Marine turtles often mistake floating plastic as a marine animal.
There's a pile of plastics accumulating in this deepest part of the country,
Sparking a battle between conservationists and those who would harm them.
We conduct intelligence-based operation.
Ang totoo lang po, napakahirap. Kasi unang-una sa mga law enforcer, kagaya sa amin, nagbubuhis po kami ng buhay.
Tayo, ganun din, maraming. Pero ngayon, pag sa malapitan na lang kasi pinagbabawal.
A staggering 2.7 million tons of plastic waste are generated in the Philippines each year. But 70% of the Filipino population have no access to disposal facilities and sanitary landfills. Its deadly impact can be seen in the rivers of Metro Manila, with 1 million tons of plastic entering the oceans each year. A secondary impact of manufacturing plastic creates billions of tons of greenhouse gas emissions. Recent research estimates that the oceans are absorbing as much heat as that's generated by 5 atomic bombs every second. At stake is the survival of marine animals and underwater plant species everywhere.
The IPBES Global Assessment Report states that around 1 million species of plants and animals are threatened by extinction within decades, most of them, if we don't counteract. So we have already now 40% of amphibians which are threatened by extinction, and 1/3 of coral bleaching reefs, and 1/3 of marine mammals. For insects, we estimate around 10%, which is a conservative estimate, might be many more, but also here we have at least 500,000 out of the million which are insects, which we are going to lose if we don't counteract.
The changing climate is set to disturb the natural gender ratio of the green sea turtles in places like Palawan, a biodiversity haven that is now under attack from rising temperatures. Greenhouse emissions increase the temperature of sand where turtles hatch their eggs. Under hot conditions, more females than males are born. Climate change also impacts sea level rise, which can erode nesting beaches and bleach coral reefs, an important habitat for turtles. This change has made biologists like Nivong Puna deeply concerned.
Ang Palawan ay napaka-fragile na ecosystem. Hindi tayo sanay sa mga masama talagang panahon. Pero kung yung climate change natin ay biglang hindi gradual, sabihin natin hindi gradual, hindi rin makaka-adapt yung ating mga species. So ang tendency either naapektuhan ng kanilang yung cycle ng kanilang from egg laying, courtship, lahat yun maapektuhan. Dahil nga, pero kung gradual lang, baga sabi nga nila pag yung palaka ilagay mo sa mainit na tubig kaagad, biglang tumalon yan. Pero kapag dahan-dahanin mo, mag-a-adapt mo na siya doon, sa mainit na yun, kung dahan-dahan, matagal hindi siya tatalon. Dahil kinukup up pa niya yung kung kaya niyang itolerate. Pero kung malaking factor ng changes, mukhang malaking sakuna sa ating mga biodiversity.
Puna believes it is possible that the population of sea turtles could be completely female in the near future. Without males, the species may never reproduce, leading to their extinction. And with new threats around the horizon, the world is at risk of losing these majestic mariners at a much faster rate. Global pollution has been declared as one of the primary reasons for the 6th mass extinction within the next decade. Plastics made from fossil fuels account for much of the blame. Dio Florence Onda is a microbial oceanographer. He's investigating the impact of plastic pollution inside the oceans.
A study by World Bank in 2019 suggested that the Philippines itself is actually producing around 1.7 million metric tons of plastics annually, with 20% of this, or around 500,000 metric tons, actually ending up in the environment. Studies suggested that globally, 7 out of the 10 most polluting rivers in the world are actually found in the Philippines, with Pasig River actually being on top of that list. And that's a lot. All of these rivers in the Philippines estimated to contribute around 350,000 metric tons of plastics annually.
So Dr. Dio decided to deep dive 10,000 meters below sea level to understand the depth of this plastic problem. It's deeper than the height of Mount Everest. Such a dive in the Philippines had never been attempted before.
Thank you. Cool. We're in.
After meticulous planning, Dio took the plunge into the Emden Deep, the 3rd deepest point on planet Earth.
Roger that. Life support is good. I've got a green board. We are clear to dive.
After a 12-hour dive inside a specially designed capsule, Onda and American explorer Victor Vescovo descended to one of the deepest points inside the ocean for the first time in human history. What they eventually saw at the base of the ocean shocked them and their team.
There's a lot of stuff on the floor. Oh, that's detritus. That one? That's garbage down there. I'm pretty sure.
I thought it was a reflection, but yeah, I'm seeing it.
Good Lord, there's all debris down here. Much more than I expected.
As a scientist myself, what I was expecting was megalodons, giant squids, weird sea creatures. What we saw were actually floating debris. I thought at first it was a jellyfish, but apparently it was a bag, a plastic bag intact at the bottom of the Philippine Trench. Many of the countries in the global north, or those that are more developed, actually export their trash to developing countries as well as China for recycling, reuse, or even disposal. In 2018 alone, 171% increase was observed in the number or the volume of trash that actually entered ASEAN countries. It just really tells us the extent and the gravity of plastics pollution.
Dr. Dio is now concerned about the dangers of plastic waste fragments in the ocean, known as microplastics.
What we're focusing on is how microplastics could possibly be going into the food that we eat, the fish that we are eating every day, the mussels, the oysters that we are eating, and other invertebrates such as crabs, sea urchins, and even sea cucumbers, how those microplastics get concentrated in their gut and how it can actually be transferred to us. Microplastics are from fossil fuel. Ultimately, if they degrade, they decompose, they will return as greenhouse gases. In all of this, at the end of the day, humans will suffer because it will affect our food security, it will affect our livelihood, it will affect the resources that we depend on, it will affect the environment that actually sustain us.
Studies estimate there are now 15 to 51 trillion pieces of plastic in the world's oceans, from the equator to the poles, from Arctic ice sheets to the seafloor. Plastic ocean waste is now having a direct and deadly effect on wildlife, like the green sea turtles. A. Yapinche is a scientist and founder of the Marine Wildlife Watch of the Philippines.
In terms of severity, we're in the top 3 in the world in terms of plastic pollution. So that's concerning because we're also the center of marine biodiversity. Marine turtles, or some species of marine turtles, would feed on jellyfish, for example, and they would often mistake floating plastic as a marine animal or as their prey. So when they feed on these trash and plastic in the water, they're unable to expel it and unable to digest it. And if the plastic is big enough, it usually causes blockage in their intestines, and that's detrimental to the health of the animal.
Sharp plastics can rupture internal organs, and bags can cause intestinal blockages, leaving turtles unable to feed, resulting in starvation. Even if they survive, consuming plastic can make turtles unnaturally buoyant, which can stunt their growth and lead to slow reproduction rates.
Another way that plastic can affect marine turtles would be through entanglement. So we have a lot of cases of not only plastic bags, but fishing nets, which are also made of plastic, and even nylon strings used as a fishing line. They are able to entangle marine turtles. And since marine turtles are air-breathing animals, if they cannot surface because of this entanglement, they do drown and die. It's often that we do not find out the cause of death because no one can do a necropsy on the animal due to lack of technical skills, especially in isolated areas in different islands of the Philippines.
In these oceans, which provide the largest natural carbon sink for greenhouse gases, plastic leaves a deadly legacy. The world is now on track to almost triple the use of plastics in less than 4 decades, according to newly released findings. Annual worldwide production of fossil fuel-based plastics is set to top 1.2 billion tons by 2060. After the break, dynamite fishing in Palawan and its impact on the coral reefs of Southeast Asia. Nature is declining globally at rates unprecedented in human history. It's a direct result of exploitation of natural resources, pollution, and climate change. That's the claim of a comprehensive study that believes that 1 million animal and plant species are now threatened with extinction, many within decades. A major reason for this devastation? A 50% increase in carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere since the start of the Industrial Revolution. Jones Tabuhara is journeying inside the Puerto Princesa underground river. He's out to measure the carbon dioxide levels inside caves in the region, which are a natural carbon sink. These locations feature pristine natural beauty, preserved in time, making it an ideal spot to study environmental changes over the years.
So inaaral nila na kung ilang taon nga itong nangyari itong tag-init at ilang taon itong nangyari ang tag-ulan na to. So nagbibilang tayo ng libu-libong taon pabalik, no? Hindi papunta. Pabalik tayo lagi. So yun ang kanila binibilang. Ito sa sa loob ngayon, lalo na itong lugar na to, ay meron tayo ditong mga instrumento na iniwan sa pagkukulikta ng mga tubig, ang kanyang temperatura, ang kanyang CO2 ng lugar, tapos yung drops ng stalagmites tsaka stalactites. Ang base doon sa kanilang pag-aaral na gusto nila makita ang pagbabago ng panahon, no, ng klima natin kasi nga
The present concentration of carbon dioxide is the highest in the last 14 million years on the planet. But Puerto Princesa has a unique distinction. It's carbon neutral. Puerto Princesa's 65% forest coverage helps remove 8 times more carbon dioxide than it releases.
Ito naman pong instrument na to, sinasabi nila na nagme-measure ng CO2. Vaisala naman in a scientific term. So, ang mini-measure niya is yung CO2 composition po ng loob ng cave. Importante din po ito na ginagamit para sa scientific study kasi yung temperatura ng cave natin madidetermine kung ano din po yung epekto ng climate sa labas dito sa loob. Kunyari, yung upper level ng cave, yung sa labas na, wala na masyadong puno, tapos grabe na yung pollution, yung air pollution. Nag-aapekto po yan sa temperatura dito sa loob ng kuweba.
But pristine environmental habitats like the Puerto Princesa subterranean river are under threat from transforming into a plastic artery to the ocean, leading to the devastation of its marine ecology. According to one study, around 1,000 rivers around the globe are responsible for roughly 80% of marine pollution. Monitoring such rivers becomes the responsibility of park rangers like these.
Kasi may butas yan sa gitna. So from Suda straw, palaki siya ng palaki, palaki ng palaki, hanggang palaki ng palaki. Ganon ang sistema na tumatakbo dito sa... So, ang plastic pollution natin dito, yung naaagos galing community sa labas, papasok. So, pag hindi na monitor ito, lahat yan magkukunikte yan, dadaan sa ilalim ng kuweba, sa tubig, kakainin ng mga ibang mga hayop, lalabas na naman siya ulit sa bukana sa ilog, kakainin na naman ng mga pawikan. So titingnan natin ang sistema ng ating kapaligiran ay lahat ay nagkukunikta.
The world's oceans now contain 90% of the heat from human-induced global warming. Rising ocean temperatures are killing coral reefs around the world. The diversity of life found in marine habitats is created by corals, often called the rainforests of the sea. Fish and other organisms live, feed, reproduce, and rear their young in the many nooks and crannies formed by coral reefs. Climate change has led to a chain reaction that's resulting in the reduction of marine species, like the green sea turtles. Rising heat has had an impact on marine habitats as far away as Australia. Coral scientist Charlie Veren has been studying the damage for the last 40 years.
Well, a coral reef is a very competitive environment. Everything competes with everything else all the time. So corals have got this symbiosis with the algae, and that produces food and oxygen. But if you raise the temperature just above the absolute temperature tolerance that the corals have, the algae produce too much oxygen, and that kills them. There's parts of the Great Barrier Reef where you can drive on a boat or swim for kilometres without seeing a living coral. We've lost about half of all the corals of the Great Barrier Reef. There's no way it will continue for another 100 years. There won't be any coral left. There won't be any coral left in 50 years. If you want to extrapolate from what we have now, the incremental damage that's been done we can expect virtually no coral reefs as we know them today to exist by mid-century.
In the Philippines, the corals also come under threat from irresponsible fishing techniques. The remote islands of the Philippines are strewn with dynamite fish hunters. We meet one of them, introduced to us as Mark, not his real name. He's been catching fish with the help of homemade dynamites for years.
Kasi wala kaming pinagkukunan ng mga hanapbuhay, yung dagat lang. Sa bungbungan lang kami nabubuhay, sodium, alos lahat ng mga illegal yung mga hanapbuhay namin. Din 15 years na nagdaan kasi dati sa 15 years pa lang yung edad ko, marami pa yung mga isda na mabumbong. Lalong-lalo na sa malapitan, sa malayo, ganun din, marami. Pero ngayon, pag sa malapitan na lang kasi pinagbabawal, sa malayo medyo unti-unti na lang, pero konting magtsatsaga na lang.
Mark takes us off the shore to an undisclosed location. He carefully deploys his homemade explosive. Such poorly made bombs, for a distracted fisherman, could prove fatal. With only 4 seconds left before the fuse goes off, Mark unleashes the dynamite into the shallow sea. With a single homemade flipper and a pair of goggles, one of the fishermen dives 30 feet into the water after the bomb goes off. Some fish bobble onto the surface, dead or gasping for their last breaths. The Philippine Fisheries Code of 1998 has declared this form of fishing through explosives or with the use of noxious or poisonous substances illegal.
Bawa yung bungbong dito lang nakalutang sa ibabaw, wala rin yan madadamis na bato doon. Kasi depende naman yan sa takbo ng isda. Kasi pag isda dito sa kalagitnaan, dapat yung bungbong isakto lang namin sa kalagitnaan. Pag dito naman sa taas nagakawan, dyan man yan kami hahagis. Dyan lang yan yung bungbong sa ibabaw. Pag nasa ilalim naman, sayad sa bato, doon namin yung bungbong na ipadapa.
The fisherman lurches along the ocean floor, collecting fish, stunned or dead, among crevices and broken coral. "20 minutes later, he surfaces, heaving for breath, with highly valued reef fish in his hands. But at times, the catch can include a dead green sea turtle that can fetch a much higher price.
May nagkwento rin sa akin yung mga kaibigan ko na yung nagbubungbong, nagsama yung pawikan, nabasag din yung shell niya. Yung mga pawikan kasi, meron yan yung bumibili yung mga Chino. Yung mga Pilipino rin nagbibili dyan sa mangsi tapos pinapasa nila sa mga Chino. Pero yung sabi nila, by sizing daw yung pawikan. Pag malaki rin yung presyo. May small, medium at saka large.
Thousands of fish and mussels and other shellfish were found afloat along the Las Piñas and Parañaque coastline.
The UN Environment Program says the use of dynamites is one of the most destructive forms of fishing. It indiscriminately kills any animal in the blast area, from fish eggs and plankton to green sea turtles, and devastates corals. Without healthy corals, the ecosystem and the fish that live within it begin to die off.
The dynamite fishing would happen in municipal waters, and that's usually where you find your coral reefs and seagrass beds. And these are utilized by marine turtles as feeding areas. Okay, so if it happens that the municipality hasn't controlled illegal fishing, including dynamite fishing, so any of those activities in that area, will affect turtles. It can kill them directly. We've had reports of dead turtles with broken carapace attributed to dynamite fishing.
With 10,500 square miles of coral reef, the Philippines is a global center for marine biodiversity. But the country has struggled to protect it in the face of human activity and institutional inaction. A 2017 report by the United Nations predicts that all 29 World Heritage coral reefs, including one in the Philippines, will die by 2100, unless carbon emissions are drastically reduced. But as the climate crisis intensifies, incidents of violence against those protecting these habitats are increasing. The world's biodiversity is under threat from climate change, and new research has revealed alarming statistics. Wildlife species around the world have plunged by 69% on average since 1970. That's the claim of the World Wildlife Fund's Living Planet Report 2022.
Yeah, well, we're seeing kind of a double crisis. We have the biodiversity loss crisis and the climate crisis. And those things are, mutually reinforcing. They tell us where human interference into the planet is really having a big impact on wildlife. We've been converting much of the natural world's natural habitat for our own purposes, mainly food, but also for infrastructure and housing and places where we live. And taking away those wild spaces means that a lot of the wildlife doesn't have anywhere to live.
The Philippines has experienced rapid population growth since the 1960s. It's resulted in human encroachments into areas preserved for animals. Incidents of violence have already erupted against those protecting their lands and animal habitats. Small indigenous communities that have coexisted with wildlife species are being swallowed by modern lifestyles in places like Palawan, one tree and one green sea turtle at a time. One reason is the international exotic food market. Turtle eggs are considered to be an aphrodisiac, often with no basis in science. The turtles are also hunted for meat and exported to countries illegally. The green sea shell trade has exasperated the dwindling population of turtles in the Philippines.
Last year, at least 33 people were killed in the Philippines for defending their land, forests, and rivers.
Palawan is often called the Philippines' last ecological frontier. The province is also in a continuous battle to preserve its natural assets. It is for this very reason that the role of environmental defenders like Efren Baladeras has become increasingly important. The 50-year-old has had a lifetime of conflict behind him, having led a private militia for a corrupt general as an illegal logger. He flipped sides 2 decades ago and is today an activist, fighting to stop corporations and governments seeking to plunder Palawan's valuable natural resources.
Ang pinakamalaking issue dito po sa Palawan ay yung pangungulikta po sa kagaya ng mga pawikan doon po sa ito po ay nagbibilang na rin ng mga taon ang pangungulikta nito. Ito ay napakamahal na mga produkto kasi ang buyer nito ay hindi po basta-basta. Ang buyer po nito ay nanggagaling po China, Malaysia na nagkukunik po dito sila sa Palawan kasi ang Palawan napakarami po niyan kagaya ng mga pawikan at saka mga iba pa mga endangered. Minsan dito po sa ilalim. Tapos yan minsan itatago po nila yan kasi babaliktarin na lang po nila yan. Yung pawikan hindi na po gumagalaw yan kasi pag once na...
As the world runs out of green sea turtles, environmental defenders like Efren are being tested like never before. It's an uphill battle to save their island home of Palawan from the illegal destruction of its mountains, forests, and fisheries.
Ang totoo lang po napakahirap. Kasi unang-una, Una-una sa mga law enforcer kagaya sa amin, nagbubuwis po kami ng buhay. Lalo na pag sa dagat kasi sa isang pagkakamali mo lang nalulunod ka na, nalulubog ka na. Kaya napakahirap kasi kung titingnan natin, kami at saka yung aming pamilya, kami yung mga binabalikan ng mga nag-illegal fishing. Kaya napakahirap. Doon sa aming mga ginagawa tungkol sa ganitong trabaho. Napakaraming threat po sa amin sa mga nadaanan po namin. Hindi lang pati yung mga pamilya nila. Kaya napakaraming threat nila sa amin kasi kami yung balakid doon sa kanilang mga masamang ginagawa. Kaya ang threat namin hindi lang para sa amin, pati na sa pamilya namin. Kaya napakadelikado nga yung ganitong trabaho na para sa amin.
Protecting the green sea turtles is important as they maintain the marine ecosystem. They graze on seagrass and algae. Seagrass captures carbon up to 35 times faster than tropical rainforests. Green sea turtles were discovered in the Philippines in 1920, and after the Second World War, they were believed to be extinct. It wasn't until 2001, during an assessment of wildlife in Palawan, that they were rediscovered. But an Inter-Governmental Panel on Climate Change believes green sea turtles are now under threat from climate change and may go extinct within this decade.
Marine turtle conservation activities in the Philippines has started since the 1980s. So it's been that long that we have been conserving and protecting our marine turtles. We try to monitor nesting marine turtles. We put tags or we apply tags on them so we get to identify them. And then there's non-stop communication campaigns to increase awareness of the local community so we get to have more support. And then some research activities were also being conducted as well as enforcement activities.
Security forces have been called in to boost protection for the turtles. Police Major Bernie Seldet Jr. is a deputy commander of the 2nd Special Operations Unit in the Maritime Group. He works around the coastal islands of Palawan to establish marine protected areas to ensure sea turtles have a safe place to nest, feed, and migrate freely.
Turtle serves to be a status symbol for rich people, for foreigners. Aside from that, it serves as their food or delicacy. We heard that they are using it as ornaments, the casque of the turtle. What they do is that they come here, they have a contact from the local fisher folks, and they will have a trade with fisher folks. So basically, our fishermen, to have food sustenance or subsidize their livelihood, they engage in these activities.
Police Major Bernie routinely conducts anti-poaching operations in the Palawan Sea to ensure that his troops are battle-ready. Today, they are holding a routine drill that's aimed at arresting intruding fishermen for illegal poaching.
More than 100 dead hawksbill turtles were discovered aboard a Vietnamese fishing vessel apprehended near Malampaya in the seas of western Philippines.
It's dangerous in a way that, unlike land operations, we are dealing with sea-based operations, and if we are at sea, we are basically on the same level as those of the perpetrators. In fact, sometimes they are more advantageous position than us because they know the area. They have been there for a long time, and they have been fishing in that area for a long time.
The Philippines partnered with Malaysia to establish the Turtle Islands Heritage Protected Area in 1996 as the first transboundary protected area for marine turtles in the world. But this region continues to attract illegal wildlife poachers.
In 2012, we have apprehended 2 Vietnamese vessels engaged in poaching. We have recovered from them around 200 live and dead sea turtles. Past year alone, we have apprehended more or less 700 fishermen involved in illegal fishing activities. It needs information from the populace, from the citizenry. We have to procure intelligence, open or otherwise, because it would be difficult for us to pinpoint who are the persons involved without utilizing information and intelligence.
Poaching in the Philippines is punishable with a fine of up to $100,000 US, along with confiscation of the catch, equipment, and vessel. Fighting against a fast-receding green sea turtle population requires conservation and the protection of its beach habitats. Palawan in the Philippines is an idyllic tropical island. With its powder-white beaches and lush forests, it is one of Asia's most visited tourist destinations. But this very tourism along the beaches of Palawan is now killing green sea turtles due to plastic waste entering their habitats.
If we are going to expose the area for tourism, so we attract many tourists. And the problem is their garbage disposal. Without proper disposal, this can lead to some of the plastics might be carried into the water. Some areas in Palawan, green sea turtle is a really delicacy. So if they offer that one in our tourists, what does that mean? The population will be diminished for a longer period of time.
A sea turtle's natural lifespan is estimated to be between 50 to 100 years. When an adult female sea turtle is ready to lay her eggs, she returns to the beach where she was born, no matter how long ago her last visit was. Some females nest every year until they reach the age of 80. But the unregulated construction of hotels is making nesting difficult, often threatening the survival of hatchlings. Some hoteliers, though, see synergies between tourism and conservation.
We have a marine turtle conservation program. We take note of sea turtle nests. We relocate the eggs when we believe that they are under threat of seawater inundation or poaching. We practice proper hatchling releases so that people who stay with us are enlightened on how these things should happen. As well as in operating our resorts, we follow the standards that have been globally set by scientists when it comes to lighting of the beach so that we do not impair the movement of the hatchlings when they imprint. When they emerge from their eggs, they will want to crawl back into the sea as fast and as best as they could. So our lighting also took that into account.
The group also works to protect critical mangrove systems, seagrass beds, and coral reef ecosystems.
So here in all of our resorts, in all of our properties, we run sewage treatment plants, so on-site treatment facilities so that we do not dump sewage into the sea. So in other words, as a company, we've had a very intimate relationship with sea turtles, specifically in trying to conserve them.
Due to their efforts, they received the Sea Turtle Friendly Tourism certification by the Wildlife Friendly Enterprise Network. After the break, we discover positive new mindsets emerging with the potential to protect nature's most vulnerable. The islands near Palawan in the Philippines are home to 5 of the world's 7 sea turtle species. They include the green sea turtle, hawksbill turtle, loggerhead turtle, leatherback turtle, and olive ridley. But the health of their habitats have been compromised by plastic waste, unregulated logging, unmanaged coastal development, and active poaching. A rise in the illegal trade of turtle eggs, meat, and shells has further pushed these populations to the brink of extinction. That led to the International Union for Conservation of Nature declaring all turtle species on their red list of endangered species. Established as a protected area in 1999, a group of 7 small islands in the province of Tawi-Tawi received protected status. Now known as the Municipality of Turtle Islands, these areas are spread over 242,000 hectares. To keep the islands protected from turtle poachers, access to the Turtle Islands is made intentionally difficult with no regular means of transportation to the area. One such island is Baguan, which is celebrating its 75th Turtle Day Island Parade today. It's aimed to enhance collaboration between local communities to protect and preserve the turtles' nesting grounds. Despite arrangements made to protect habitats, turtle hatchlings continue to have a low chance of survival. The young are highly vulnerable to predators such as birds, dogs, and fish. Others swallow plastic debris accidentally and die. Only an estimated 1 in 1,000 sea turtle hatchlings will survive to adulthood. It is for this reason that their conservation is paramount.
Through zoning of seascapes and landscapes, we can now regulate the entry of all projects and developments that is coming into the province of Palawan. First, we have the core zone for the marine and coastal ecosystem. It is a no-touch zone. So people cannot go in there and have their activities inside the core zone. It's generally a no-touch zone. And then we have the buffer zone, which means some activities might be allowed and some activities are not allowed. So there are strategies under the buffer zone which people can do soft impact activities.
Despite these efforts, conservation activities directed at preserving sea turtle populations remain challenging. Plastic production is set to increase by 40% over the next decade, leading to more marine pollution. Today, the equivalent of 1 garbage truck of plastic waste is dumped into the ocean every single minute. It's a figure that's expected to rise. New research suggests that climate change could wipe out 60% of all fish species in the oceans. That makes the goal of reducing the use of single-use plastic all the more urgent in efforts to increase the survival rates of turtles. Mike Liu is a member of the Wild Birds Club of Philippines in Metro Manila. He routinely conducts cleanup operations like these to ensure plastic waste doesn't make its way to the oceans.
So a lot of people joined us, and then they started their own cleanups. Their church groups, other NGOs, even LGUs conducted their own cleanup. That's why now you can see the sand. Dati, punong-puno to ng garbage. Like, siguro, how many feet of 1 or 2, 2 feet of garbage to? It's layers and layers and layers of garbage. Well, syempre what we have to do is to stop it at the source, di ba? And if we don't have enough enforcement and policies, hindi natin magagawa to. Hindi tayo matatapos sa clean-up.
The plastic that's collected is sent to newly established recycling units like these in the city of San Pedro. Filipinos use a yearly average of 20 kilograms of plastics, from which 15 kilograms end up in landfills or the oceans. The city of San Pedro is also encouraging recycling by offering milk packets or canned goods in return for plastic. That's being overseen by Mary Lou Balba, who's the head of City Enro of San Pedro Laguna.
So doon kami nagsimula noong 2020, nilaunch nga yung Alas Kalikasan kung saan lahat ng mga plastics na sachet, kinokollect ng city, tapos pinapalitan ng Alaska powdered milk. So doon kami nag-start na magpalit ng gatas. Ito ginagawa natin to para matuto yung ating mga kabarangay na mag-ipon ng plastic at mabawasan yung basurang tinatapon natin sa ating mga landfill at yung mga pumupunta sa ating mga kailugan, sa ating waterways para mabawasan yung pagbabaha.
Despite stepping up recycling and conservation efforts across the Philippines, the challenge is becoming bigger than ever. It could take as long as 1,000 years after a complete halt of greenhouse gas emissions for ocean temperatures to return to pre-industrial levels. The United Nations has labeled the year 2022 as a wasted year for climate action. A fifth effort to pass a global agreement to protect the world's oceans and marine life under the UN High Seas Treaty failed. Despite international waters representing nearly 2/3 of the world's oceans, only 1.2% are protected. Environmental campaigners have called it a missed opportunity. Climate change due to human activity is pushing the planet towards a sixth mass extinction. As the eventual price is being paid by those inhabitants that have had no contribution to the current crisis, it is the most pressing responsibility of mankind to reduce its over-reliance on the fossil fuel industry and its products before time runs out.